Imagine a woman born into a powerful media empire, defying every expectation to forge her own path in a man's world. Alicia Patterson, daughter of the formidable Joseph Medill Patterson, wasn't content with a life of privilege. She craved adventure, independence, and impact. From her early days challenging norms to her bold leaps into uncharted territories, Alicia's story is a whirlwind of resilience, passion, and innovation that will leave you inspired and breathless. Picture her navigating family pressures, personal triumphs, and professional battles that tested her spirit. With her third husband, Frank Guggenheim, she embarked on a venture that would change the landscape of news forever, founding Newsday, a powerhouse that captured hearts and headlines alike. Along the way, her creative sparks shone through whimsical projects like the comic strip Deathless Deer, while intimate connections, including a profound bond with Adlai Stevenson, added layers of intrigue and emotion. This biography peels back the curtain on Alicia's extraordinary life, her rivalries, her legacies through the Alicia Patterson Foundation, and the unbreakable drive that shattered barriers for women in media. If you're drawn to tales of trailblazers who turn chaos into legacy, dive in and discover how one woman's fire reshaped history. Her journey isn't just a story, it's a call to embrace your own bold destiny. Alicia Patterson entered the world on October 15, 1906, in the bustling heart of Chicago, but her birth carried a cloud of disappointment rather than celebration. Her father, Joseph Medill Patterson, had desperately hoped for a son following the arrival of her older sister, Eleanor Medill Patterson, in 1904. When word came that it was another girl, he reportedly slammed the door in frustration and stormed out, a reaction that etched the tone for their complicated relationship. With no male heir in sight, at least not until her half-brother, James Joseph Patterson, was born in 1922 from her father's affair with his future second wife, Mary King, Alicia unwittingly became his surrogate son. From toddlerhood, Joseph treated her as such, pushing her into experiences designed to forge unshakable grit. At the tender age of 4, he made the unconventional decision to send her abroad alone to Germany, where she lived with a host family to fully immerse herself in the language and culture. This wasn't a whim. It reflected his belief in early, rigorous global education, even if it meant separating a young child from her family in an era when such moves were rare and potentially traumatic for affluent American girls. Upon her return, the challenges intensified. Joseph turned father-daughter time into a boot camp of sorts, teaching her high diving from towering platforms into deep waters, mastering hurdle jumps on horseback across rugged terrain, and other adrenaline-fueled pursuits that tested her limits. In one of her few candid reflections shared in later years, Alicia remarked, "Father seemed to get a kick out of having me do dangerous things." Her words carried a blend of reluctant admiration for his methods and a subtle undercurrent of resentment, hinting at how these trials built her legendary toughness, while leaving her with a deep-seated longing for straightforward paternal affection without the constant proving ground. These formative years weren't all hardship. They instilled a fearless spirit that would define her, but they also sowed seeds of rebellion against anyone trying to control her path. Adding to the family dynamic, Alicia had a younger sister, Josephine Medill Patterson, born in 1913, who would later become a journalist herself, and the household included influences from extended relatives like her aunt, Eleanor Sissy Patterson, a formidable newspaper publisher in her own right. Yet, amid the privilege, emotional undercurrents ran deep. Alicia's role as the stand-in son meant she bore the weight of expectations that her sisters partially escaped. Her education became yet another battleground, where Alicia's independent streak clashed with convention. She began at prestigious institutions tailored for girls from Chicago's elite, such as the progressive Francis Parker School and the University School for Girls, both emphasizing refined manners and intellectual polish for future society leaders. But Alicia chafed against the structure. Conformity simply didn't suit her fiery personality. Seeking to instill more discipline, her parents shipped her off to a series of finishing schools. First one in Maryland focused on American etiquette and social graces, then to Lausanne, Switzerland, where the curriculum delved into European languages, arts, and diplomacy. Expulsions followed swiftly. In Lausanne, she was ousted for infractions like sneaking out after curfew or openly defying teachers, behaviors that screamed her refusal to be molded into a demure lady. The pattern persisted at a subsequent academy in Rome, Italy, where similar acts of mischief, perhaps late-night escapades or heated arguments with authority figures, led to another dismissal. These incidents weren't mere teenage pranks. They revealed a young woman already asserting her autonomy in a world that prized obedience from females. Finally, stability came at the Foxcroft School in Middleburg, Virginia, a rigorous all-girls boarding school known for its equestrian programs and academic rigor. Here, Alicia channeled her energies productively, graduating second in her class and demonstrating the sharp intellect that shone when she wasn't rebelling against the system. This achievement marked a turning point, proving she could excel on her terms. By 19, in 1925, after spending a transformative year traveling through Europe with her mother and sister Eleanor, visiting historic sites, absorbing cultures from Paris salons to Italian villas, Alicia returned for her grand debutante ball in Chicago. The event was a spectacle of opulence, flowing gowns, orchestral music, and society's elite toasting the young Patterson heiress. Yet, beneath the glittering facade, a profound restlessness stirred. She had tasted freedom abroad, and the prescribed life of marriage, teas, and charity luncheons felt stifling. Whispers from family friends painted her as the ugly duckling of the Patterson siblings during her awkward early teens, perhaps due to her tomboyish ways or the pressure of living up to her beautiful, poised relatives. But this phase only fueled her determination to transform into a force of her own. Alicia yearned for adventure, purpose, and command over her destiny, setting the stage for a life that would shatter expectations. The 1920s erupted with energy, and Alicia matched it step for step, plunging into adulthood with a vigor that captured the decade's rebellious essence. At 21, in 1927, she stepped into the family business, joining her father's New York Daily News in the promotion department, a role that involved crafting ads and buzz to sell the paper's sensational stories. Soon, she advanced to cub reporter, navigating the chaotic, smoke-filled newsrooms dominated by tough-talking men. It was gritty work, chasing leads on scandals, interviewing sources in back alleys, and typing up stories under tight deadlines. Alicia embraced it, even mingling with fellow young journalists at underground speakeasies, where illegal gin flowed and conversations turned lively amid prohibition shadows. But the call of adventure tugged harder than the typewriter. She took up flying lessons, a daring pursuit for women then, and in the early 1930s set a women's speed record from New York to Philadelphia, clocking in faster than any female pilot before her. This feat grabbed local headlines, underscoring her thrill-seeking nature and love for pushing boundaries in the skies, literally soaring above societal limits. Family obligations, however, pulled her toward matrimony. In 1929, Under her father's strong influence, she married James Simpson, Jr., the son of Marshall Field's chairman, a strategic alliance linking two Chicago dynasties, more about business synergy than romantic sparks. The couple shared a home for only a year before divorcing in 1930, a swift end that freed Alicia but highlighted the mismatch. Even during this brief marriage, she refused to idle. She accompanied her father on an exotic hunting safari to Indochina, modern-day Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, where the rugged terrain and wild animals tested her mettle. There, Alicia bagged a majestic leopard with a precise shot, while her sister Josephine claimed a Bengal tiger, a family tale of triumph that blended danger, bonding, and the Patterson legacy of bold exploits. These weren't casual outings. They echoed her father's tough love philosophy, weaving adrenaline with emotional ties that were as thrilling as they were fraught. After the divorce, Alicia's exploratory spirit didn't wane. She turned to freelancing for Liberty Magazine, a Patterson family-owned publication known for its mix of fiction, features, and opinion pieces. Here, she honed her voice through book reviews and thoughtful articles, revealing a clever, insightful style that drew readers in with wit and depth. In 1931, she embarked on her second marriage to Joseph W. Brooks, a union that seemed promising at first but gradually unraveled over 8 years, ending in divorce in 1939 amid growing incompatibilities. During this period, she rejoined the Daily News in 1932, shifting focus to book reviews, a steadier gig that lasted over a decade and allowed her to critique literature from bestsellers to obscure works, sharpening her editorial eye. But journalism's pitfalls caught up again. While reporting on a high society divorce scandal, a juicy story full of intrigue and celebrity names, Alicia inadvertently misspelled key names in her article, triggering a libel lawsuit against the paper. The error was costly. Her father fired her on the spot, a devastating humiliation that forced her back to Chicago with her tail between her legs. This professional low point stung deeply, exposing the high stakes of the field and her vulnerability within the family empire. Yet rather than breaking her, it ignited a fiercer resolve to succeed independently, away from her father's shadow and the weight of his disapproval. 1939 brought a seismic change that would define Alicia's legacy. She tied the knot for the third time with Frank Guggenheim, a multifaceted man, heir to a vast mining fortune, an accomplished aviator like herself, and former U.S. ambassador to Cuba from 1929 to 1933. Harry's Jewish heritage added nuance to their interfaith marriage. Alicia was Protestant, at a time when global anti-Semitism was escalating with the rise of Nazi Germany, potentially stirring subtle societal tensions in their elite circles. Some speculated that Harry backed her next endeavor, partly to channel her restless energy and keep her out of trouble, but the partnership proved transformative. Drawing on the Guggenheim family's wealth, they acquired the defunct facilities of the Nassau County Journal in Hempstead, Long Island, a modest setup in a converted automobile dealership. On September 9, 1940, Newsday hit the stands for the first time, a tabloid-style daily aimed at the growing suburban audience. Harry controlled 51% of the stock, leaving Alicia with 49%, but she was unequivocally the boss as editor and publisher, infusing the paper with her vision. World War II disrupted their rhythm when Harry was called to military service in 1942, leaving Alicia to steer the ship alone until 1945. She rose to the occasion magnificently, building Newsday into a dynamic force with a unique blend: aggressive investigative journalism that uncovered local scandals, vibrant writing that hooked readers, a liberal-leaning perspective on politics, and comprehensive coverage of international events alongside neighborhood news. Innovation was key. The paper pioneered modern layouts, bold graphics, and a focus on suburban life that resonated with Long Island's booming post-war population. A major milestone came in 1953 when their rival, the Nassau Review-Star, shuttered, clearing the field. The following year, 1954, Newsday claimed the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service after a groundbreaking series exposing labor racketeering at local horse racetracks, involving undercover reporters risking safety to reveal corruption in vivid detail. Circulation surged dramatically, from a humble few thousand copies in the early days to over 213,000 by 1954 and nearing 400,000 by the early 1960s, positioning it as America's largest suburban newspaper and the 12th largest evening daily nationwide. Alicia demanded fairness, ensuring balanced treatment of Republicans and Democrats despite her personal Democratic sympathies. As historian Marilyn Elizabeth Perry observed, Patterson never wanted to make money or gain political power from Newsday. She maintained that all she wanted was a good newspaper. This mantra guided her, helping craft a distinct identity for Long Island, transforming it from a New York City bedroom community into a region with its own voice through stories on local schools, traffic woes, and cultural happenings. Alicia's creativity spilled beyond traditional news. In 1943, during the height of World War II, she collaborated with her close friend and artist, Nasa McMean, a renowned illustrator famous for her magazine covers, to launch the comic strip Deathless Deer. This whimsical series followed the adventures of an immortal deer navigating fantastical worlds, blending humor, fantasy, and light satire. It debuted in the Boston Herald and her family's Chicago Tribune, running successfully and offering readers a delightful escape from wartime grimness. This venture unveiled a playful, imaginative side to Alicia, far removed from her image as a steely editor barking orders in the newsroom. Yet, as her career peaked, her private life harbored layers of complexity that enriched her human story, revealing a woman of profound depth beneath the public facade. Beyond the accolades and headlines, Alicia's life pulsed with genuine emotions, heartaches from family dynamics, quiet moments of joy and friendships, and inner conflicts that made her profoundly relatable. Her bond with her father, Joseph, left indelible scars. By treating her as his proxy son, he instilled resilience but also a perpetual sense of conditional love. A touching, seldom discussed memory emerges from her reflections. As a child during those high-stakes activities, she'd grip the reins or diving board with tiny, trembling hands, her heart racing not just from fear, but from the desperate hope of earning his unreserved pride. In private writings, she lamented, he had wanted a boy, and that meant one of the Patterson girls would have to be his substitute son. Eleanor, deemed too delicate, and Josephine, too young, escaped the intensity, leaving Alicia to carry the load, a burden that fostered her strength but ignited a rebellious fire against authority. This pattern echoed in her marriages. The first two felt like familial duties, lacking true passion, and ending in disillusionment. With Harry, the union began with shared thrills, flying planes together, hunting in remote spots, but friction built over time. He occasionally wielded divorce threats, leveraging his majority stake in Newsday as if it were a contested asset in a parental dispute. Alicia stood her ground. In a memorable confrontation archived in family accounts, she snapped, "Harry, go on upstairs to the money. You're not supposed to meddle in editorial." This retort encapsulated her fierce protection of her professional sanctuary. Then came her profound affair with Adlai Stevenson, the eloquent Illinois governor and Democratic presidential contender in 1952 and 1956. What started as intellectual camaraderie in the early 1950s blossomed into a deep romance, providing an emotional haven from her marital tensions. Their correspondence wove politics with poetic intimacy, and in 1958 they embarked on a daring trip to the Soviet Union amid Cold War hostilities, a journey blending diplomatic curiosity with stolen moments of affection. In a vulnerable private letter to him, Alicia confessed, "I've always been the hunter, but with you, I feel hunted, and I like it." This rare admission, unearthed from biographical digs, exposes a woman whose independence masked a yearning for mutual vulnerability and true partnership. Close friends witnessed this softer Alicia. Author John Steinbeck, a confidant since 1956, captured it poignantly after her passing. At Harry's request, he penned Letters to Alicia for Newsday, a series of essays mourning her while voicing bold, divisive opinions on the escalating Vietnam War, President Lyndon Johnson's policies, and what Steinbeck perceived as America's ethical erosion. She led from the heart, he wrote in one, lauding her fusion of compassion and fortitude. These tributes humanize her, spotlighting delights like cherished travels and deep conversations, contrasted with hidden sorrows, chronic ulcers that plagued her for years, aggravated by relentless stress from family upheavals and demanding work. The 1938 divorce of her parents, sparked by her father's affair, and the birth of half-brother James, demolished any facade of stability, leaving lasting wounds. Alicia envisioned bequeathing Newsday to her niece and nephew, including Josephine's son Joseph Albright, who later wed future Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. But destiny derailed those plans. Controversies threaded through Alicia's life like ink stains on newsprint, adding shades of gray to her reputation and fueling historical discussions that persist. The libel blunder at the Daily News stood as an early professional storm. Her name errors in that explosive divorce coverage not only cost the paper dearly in legal fees, but branded her as fallible in an unforgiving industry, amplifying the sting of her father's swift dismissal. On a personal front, her enduring affair with Stevenson stirred elite gossip, casting shadows on her fidelity to Harry. Did he fully grasp the affair's intensity? Accounts suggest he may have overlooked it to maintain their alliance, but in an age when women's extramarital affairs drew severe scrutiny, it painted Alicia as audacious or reckless in defying norms. Politically, Newsday's progressive tilt often clashed with Harry's right-leaning preferences. He favored GOP figures like Dwight Eisenhower and Richard Nixon, while she championed Democrats like Stevenson, creating marital and editorial friction. Post her death, Harry's pivot of the paper toward conservatism ignited staff uproar, with some accusing him of betraying her ethos. Family rivalries simmered too. Her aunt Sissy Patterson commanded the Washington Times-Herald with tyrannical flair, fostering subtle competitions within the clan, though Alicia charted her independent course. Scholars debate her feminist credentials. Was she a groundbreaking icon, shattering barriers as a rare female publisher in a patriarchal domain? Or did her elite upbringing and Guggenheim financing soften the trail? Detractors argue her vaunted neutrality occasionally faltered, with personal views favoring suburban Long Island narratives over urban challenges, potentially skewing coverage. Even Deathless Deer drew quiet backlash for its frivolity during wartime austerity, when grave news overshadowed whimsy. These facets portray Alicia not as flawless, but as richly layered. A trailblazer who maneuvered through scandals with tenacity, challenging us to reconsider how we evaluate multifaceted historical women. Alicia's influence echoes long after her era, reshaping journalism, societal norms, and cultural dialogues in enduring ways. Newsday's ascent under her guidance pioneered suburban media, demonstrating that grassroots tales, from PTA meetings to graft investigations, could rival metropolitan giants and foster community cohesion. By the 1960s, it had revolutionized coverage, encouraging today's news outlets to merge pinpoint local reporting with worldwide insights, as seen in digital platforms echoing her model. The 1954 Pulitzer for dismantling racetrack corruption established a benchmark for accountability journalism, inspiring modern probes into power abuses. Personally, her untimely death at 56 on July 2, 1963, from post-surgery complications tied to her ulcers at New York's Doctors Hospital, reverberated through the industry like a silenced press. It was an abrupt close for such a dynamic soul, and her ashes found rest at her treasured hunting lodge in Kingsland, Georgia, a serene nod to her passion for untamed wilderness. Harry assumed control of Newsday, but her testament birthed the Alicia Patterson Foundation in 1965, dedicated to fellowships for seasoned journalists pursuing ambitious projects. Over 60 years, it has backed hundreds of endeavors, spanning climate crises to equity battles. For example, fellow Fred Schulte's healthcare exposés garnered Pulitzers, illustrating her ongoing ripple. Culturally, Alicia blazed trails for women in media, proving in a boys' club that vision outshines gender biases. Her Pulitzer-winning tenure, a lighthouse for aspiring female leaders. Politically, her equitable reporting ethos serves as an antidote to contemporary divides, urging balanced discourse in polarized landscapes. From her tale, we glean timeless wisdom. Ambition thrives alongside frailty. Ancestral weights can hinder or hurl forward, and fortitude converts defeats into victories. In our age of viral misinformation and distracted scrolls, Alicia's zeal for authentic, captivating narratives resonates profoundly, showing how individual grit can ignite systemic shifts, alchemizing private strife into public benefit. Ultimately, Alicia Patterson embodies life's paradoxes, a fearless pursuer who quietly sought solace, a dissenter forged by stringent upbringing, a luminary extinguished prematurely. She pursued affirmation, yet seized self-reliance, erecting a bedrock that sustains reporters and visionaries today. In her triumphs and trials, we behold humanity's tender splendor. Her imprint lingers, affirming that authentic tales like hers eternally inspire.